Okay, Green Lantern Emerald Knights essentially is it's an anthology collection of some of the different origin stories of the Green Lanterns, essentially being told why the Lanterns are getting ready to face Krona, who in this iteration has taken on his entropy persona, where more or less he is a living being of antimatter, who is currently housed inside Oa's sun. And of course what's going on is it's primarily Hal Jordan telling Orissa some different stories. So he goes over some of the past, like one of the very, very first Green Lanterns. You know, how the first four essentially kind of got overrun until one of them, who was initially a scribe, kind of went, no, these rings aren't worthless. You know, these rings, they have the power of will. We have to will ourselves to victory. And it was one of those when you kind of go, you know what? Yeah, it's fairly uplifting. It's a decent story. I've never read the actual origin of the first four lanterns. Now, and for everything else, I do take a certain measure of liberty. You know, I also do the origin of characters like Abin Sur, which is a take off the story Tigers, which they don't actually mention Alan Moore as having been the initial writer of it, so he's left off of two of them. So it's a slight variation of that, while taking bits and pieces from what Jeff Johns did for Secret Origins. Yeah, it's not directly Abin Sur and the five inversions on Ismalt. It's more of Abin Sur and Sinestro defeating Atrocitus and him taking Atrocitus back to Ismalt and him giving him a really brief synopsis of what would later become like the Blackest Night ideas. So close to Tigers, but you know the similarities in just Abin Sur arresting Atrocitus and taking him to Ismalt. Beyond that, it's entirely a Jeff Johns creation, but based off of the work of Alan Moore. They also discuss Mogo, so you end up having the Balfunga Mogo situation. Balfunga was essentially this like amazing bounty hunter and warrior who's voiced by Roddy Piper, which is an excellent job, by the way. Way to go, Hot Rod. And he's told by somebody, you know, you've beaten everybody except for Mogo. He's an undefeated Green Lantern. So of course he goes to the planet where Mogo's supposed to be. If you're a Green Lantern fan, you probably know Mogo isn't on the planet. Mogo is the planet. I was going to make the joke Mogo doesn't socialize, primarily because given his size, he has his own gravitational field. He can disrupt the gravitational field of Oa. That's why he doesn't normally show up. That one is taken almost verbatim from what Alan Moore did. You know, very, very little liberties in it. And of course, he also, again, is not mentioned as being the writer. They mentioned, I think it's Gibbons, who I think was one of the artists. So the artists get recognition, but Alan Moore doesn't get any recognition for either one of those two. The story from Kilowog is based off of something that came out of Tales of the Corps during the Blackest Night, where essentially he was being berated by the current drill instructor, drill sergeant, and then he ended up kind of saving his life and really stepping up and surviving this massive battle. That's when he became drill instructor. Again, it's different from the way the book is done, because with the book, the character's name was different, and he was pretty much based off of, I want to say, is it R.L. Emery? The drill instructor that everyone knows, who essentially cusses out everybody. So it's based off that character. Done fairly well. So, the Abin Sur on the first Lantern, Mogo, Kilowog, done very well. Of course, most of these are all being told around this other, like, larger, all-encompassing story. They also did one about Liara. Now, the one that's kind of sad about this, as I'm, going through some of these characters, is recently in comics, spoiler alert, Mogo was destroyed. And before Blackest Night happened, in between the Sinestro Corps War and the Blackest Night, Liara, who was, if you were to take the X-Men character Psylocke, take a similar sort of character, and make her purple and a Green Lantern. So essentially you have a ridiculously skilled martial artist who's also a Green Lantern. Her story, again, they take liberties from, I think it's At What Price Honor, where she essentially goes back and confronts the Golden Dragon which is the clan she used to belong to. Of course, it leads to this giant battle with her and her father. It's done beautifully well. And of course, what happened was, in comics, Amon Sur, who was the child of Abin Sur, might get kind of confusing here, was going out and killing some families. Because he's a member of the Sinestro Corps. Liara confronts him. He surrenders. Liara still kills him. She is brought to trial, convicted, and then she becomes a member of the Red Lantern Corps. And she's eventually killed by Sinestro while Hal Jordan's trying to free Sinestro from the planet Ismal, which is covered in red lanterns. Yes, very kind of bizarre. Now, if you saw Green Lantern First Flight, you're probably thinking, why is Sinestro still with the Corps? Why are people who died in First Flight in this one? So I guess what probably would have happened, because Atrocitus mentions the Sinestro Corps rising, so if you're trying to reconcile the two, it also would have been Hal Jordan would have gotten the ring in First Flight. He would have had some initial things going on. Then you would have to have Emerald Knights go in somewhere in the middle, and then after Emerald Knights, that's when you would have more of the battle between Sinestro and Hal Jordan leading the Sinestro Corps power battery. So the two don't actually line up very well. You'd almost have to shoehorn one in the center of the other. That having been said, I thought it was done fairly well. I do like the style of costumes for that. They're different from the movies, which is fine. It's different from the comics too, but that is entirely fine. This is a whole different media. If you liked First Flight, it's the same sort of costume designs, same sort of character designs. Just you're going to get a slightly different take on some of the background of some of the different Lantern characters. I'll be kind of honest, I enjoyed it. I thought it was actually done fairly well. Again, not verbatim from the comics. Not really designed to be. You know, when you take a comic to a different media, it makes sense there's going to be some artistic liberties just to kind of make it maybe flow better in the way it's done. And that, Green Lantern, Emerald Knights.